Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. I'm sure a lot of you are surprised by the title of this video, and as you should be, because I made the express choice of not sharing when I was booking this or when it was happening because of how much interest and opinion Banksy's balls have had the last 2 years. So I'm going to do an explanation in this video, and I'm also just going to kind of show how he came home and healed from the process and all of that. But I do want people to understand that, like, my decision to share Banksy's growing up the last 2 years online is not something that anyone is entitled to. It's something that I chose to do and kind of share online, and I like to do, but it gets frustrating when people online feel entitled to my life and my information and opinion on what's going on within said life, as though they have the faintest clue of what's going on in reality. The reason why I decided not to talk about booking his gelding procedure was precisely for that reason. I didn't want to give people a talking point to have about him. I didn't want people to try to sway me in either direction or try to feel like they're entitled to an opinion on my overall decision. And I just wanted to have it done and over with, all said and done, before saying anything to anyone, because I wanted to make sure he was going to heal okay and that everything was going. I'm going to start off showing him coming back from the gelding procedure and just how he's doing, and I'll also do a little bit of an update on Milo as well. And then at the end of the video I will answer the big question of why I decided to geld him now and why I didn't keep him a stallion and this and this and that. So, I did this for Banksy's little treat after his big procedure, and as you can see I made one ball bigger than the other because that's how his are, so we want it to be anatomically correct. And of course we're going to cut the balls off first, because I'm never going to stop making jokes about this. And then we also have just some regular treats. I tried to make 4 little dick treats, but they didn't turn out as well. But I'm sure the horses will like them anyways.
Ag West Clinics. Going to pick up the ballless man. With the dick cake.
I bet they'd laugh.
Really beautiful day to pick out a nutless colt. He saw us, he was screaming earlier, "Get me out of here!"
Apparently this morning he decided he didn't want to be in a stall anymore.
Oh, did he try to escape?
He's just getting restless, I think.
Yeah, he says, I've been kept in here for a while.
I'm surprised he's been this good, because he's not had to be stalled by himself.
Like ever.
Yeah.
Aww.
He's like, oh.
Let me out! Aww, Banksy!
Yeah. So I dropped Banksy off the night before his gelding procedure, and then he fasted for the morning and was gelded in the morning, and then he stayed one more night just because I wanted to make sure that his bleeding was being monitored just in case, since he was more mature. And I picked him up this morning, Wednesday the 29th, and he was in good spirits and he handled it all really well, because it's the longest time he's ever spent stalled, and especially by himself. It must have been scary, but he was a good boy.
Nutless wonder!
Banksy hadn't trailered since I first brought him to the field at the beginning of May, so it's been several months, and he loaded immediately the first time coming to the vet, and he loaded really well on the way back as well, which I was really happy with, because he usually doesn't trailer alone, and this would have been a scary experience, and I figured he would be less likely to want to load on the way back, given what happened to him when he got off the trailer the first time, but he was awesome.
Now that he has been secured in the trailer, off home to give him the dick cake. Dick cake. at the field, going to unload Nutless Wonder. Hi, boys. Hi, your friend's back. And he came back a little lighter. Yay!
Have some too.
Banksy and his dick cake. Balls.
He's made it into such a mess.
Just like your balls.
No, don't step
When they dissected them. He has an audience.
They can have some of the shaft.
Shaft cake.
So I know some people are probably wondering if it was okay for Banksy to go out right after the gelding. He had the 1 day to recover and then he's back out now because everything is looking good. It's good for horses to move around a lot after being gelded because it helps with drainage and it also reduces swelling. So he's actually supposed to be moving around, and I'm supposed to be doing 15 minutes of trot work with him a day, obviously not riding. He'll probably meet that requirement just from wandering around in the field, but I'm still going to do some stuff with him just to help him heal the best way he can.
Oh my god! Strike.
He doesn't get them, like he can see them.
He loves it. Wait, do it again.
Oh my god, I'm gonna hit him.
Oh my god.
Wow, you're cool.
Clearly in good spirits. Oh! Pogo, you guys are all kind of being mean. Hi. Nut hole.
Look at that fucking booty.
Wow, I feel so loved. Oh my god, thank you. Wow, he's running. Is it easier with the less weight, Banksy? Hi.
Plans for Banksy remain pretty much the same. I'm intending to keep him out on the field for quite some time. I might bring him back to do some groundwork after we do some work on the field at home, and he might come back for a bit and then go back out on the pasture after we've given the grass a chance to rest. And then I'm hoping to have the pasture into the winter depending on how well it holds up. They can't stay there once pipes freeze, otherwise I'd have to truck in water, so that's one of the difficulties. However, I'm planning on bringing them home, and then I have a client where I can keep Harlow and some other horses so that Banksy can come home and be with the boys. I don't want to put him out with Harlow yet because she's a bit of a skank and would probably do her damnedest to try to get him to breed her, and I'm not sure that he wouldn't try at this point.
So funny. You're so spooky. He's like, what? He's like, what are you doing? Just assert myself. Hi, Weenie.
Okay, so first things first. For planning Banksy's gelding, there was a bunch of factors that I was considering. First and foremost, I wanted to leave him as long as I possibly could without it affecting boarding arrangements or his potential to have friends. Secondly, I didn't want to do it during fly season because I didn't want him to get absolutely harassed by flies and have the healing take longer and more potential for infection, so that's why I waited until now. It's also conveniently after breeding season, meaning the vet clinic is not full of horses for breeding season when it's busy, and I wanted to take him into the clinic to have it done because of the fact that he is more mature, and I didn't want there to be a risk of him bleeding too much, and I wanted him to be right where all the professionals were in case anything didn't go to plan. Luckily, that was not the case. He handled it really well, and he's healing well so far. So far, so good. Basically, for the last 2 years, anytime I've been asked about his balls, I've said the same thing. I've said, I'm keeping him intact for growth-related purposes, and I don't know when I'm gelding at what age. I didn't have, like, a specific time marked out because it's ultimately, like, how inconvenient is it going to be for me and my life to have him as a stud? Is it going to affect his own mental welfare? Those are the two main factors. All that aside, contrary to a lot of the opinions some people had and some rumors that people started trying to claim that I was trying to stand him at stud and stuff, this is not true. That was never my priority because breeding is hard on them. I don't want to stand him at stud out and like out to the public and have it be a situation where he could have more wear and tear from breeding, or it would cut into the time that I'd be able to spend using him as a show horse. So even if he were to have been kept a stallion, it was never with the idea of making him a public stud. That was never the plan. You need to do quite a bit of breeding to actually have it be a profitable endeavor, and it's not a situation where I, under any circumstances, would want him covering the number of mares he would need to make it even make sense to go through all the process of stallion licensing and stuff. But I didn't want to give a firm answer either way because I hate when people ask me for like definitive answers on things that have some level of permanence, which is why I'll never make claims about if I'm keeping a horse forever or not, because I literally have no idea how the future is going to go. You can have a plan, but you don't know what's going to happen. And it's the same thing with gelding him. I don't want to be backed into a corner and feel like I have to give the public a definitive answer on something that is personally my decision. And me and only the people around me personally, and only like my vet and the people working with him, they're really the only ones that get to have an opinion on when to do it, and they're really the only ones that I'm looking to for advice. I didn't want to seek any from online. I didn't want people thinking that they had the right to be involved in the decision. And I just wanted to make it a stress-free process where I could get my horse into the clinic and get him the care that he needed, and not have people starting rumors or just bouncing off the walls talking about something that should not be a big deal because it's one of the most regular procedures we see in animals. Well, I'm sure some people think that I decided to do it right now for a behavioral reason. That's not the case. He's always been really good to handle and super nice and easy for a horse of his age, let alone a stud colt. He was lovely, and I would have actually preferred to have kept him intact until I started him under saddle for the sole purpose of just showing people that horses who are still intact and are stallions aren't necessarily going to be these crazy creatures that they're often depicted as. I wanted to help break those stereotypes, so that was another motivation behind me wanting to keep him intact, which is one that's more so selfish for me, but for what I viewed as the greater good for horses, to kind of show what a stud could be like with proper handling, and show them that they could also be trained using food without it becoming an issue. So I would have loved to have done that and started him under saddle, but with that said, I'll have the opportunity to do that sometime in the future, I'm sure, where I can start a stud under saddle and show work with a more mature stallion. But yeah, it would have been nice. That aside, I don't own my own property. I am at the mercy of the rules of the property that we're at, and while Banksy is very well behaved around mares, he did start talking to them and showing some interest, and for him in the long run, it's not fair to keep him pastured right next to mares that are like urinating on the fence trying to get him to mount them, because even if he doesn't do anything wrong, it's stressful and unfair to him to be in that situation when the horses he's potentially paddocked next to can try to solicit his attention that much. And there's geldings beside my field now, because the boarders that were in there left, but it wasn't fair to him, and he was very good, and I made the fence line taller, and it was fine, and he never tried to go through it, and he never tried to mount them, but it was something that was stressful to him, and it took him away from being able to eat and enjoy himself. And since I can't control who goes beside him, I don't want it to become an increasing issue where he's going to have stress or frustration from having that natural instinct and not being able to fulfill it, and having it be like waving in front of his face, teasing him. So yeah, we booked it now because breeding season's over, fly season's over. It just kind of worked. The only thing really behaviorally that he was doing is he would play really hard with his friends and kind of frat boy around and be silly, which gelding may or may not fix, but I figured if it would kind of cut that down or make him at least play safer, that I might as well, because I didn't want him to potentially injure himself from being a goofy young colt. But other than that, really, there is no reason. Like, it wasn't a rush. It was something we've been talking about a while and trying to make a plan for when to do, and something that I talked to my vet about to make a plan when was most convenient for them for him to come in. And people might feel blindsided or feel like it was made all of a sudden, and they might make assumptions that it's about a behavioral reason or that he's done something terrible or something has happened. No. I just don't feel the need to share my life this much, and I found it exceptionally frustrating how much of a topic it has been about his balls and his neutering, because he was never kept in a situation where he was ever putting other horses at risk or being an issue, and it never should have become this whole thing where people are so obsessed with when it's going to happen or creating stories to try to slam me for saying that I'm trying to stand a shitty horse at stud, which he's obviously not shitty, and people are just nasty. But what I'm getting at is people felt like they had the right to involve themselves in this from the beginning consistently for 2 years straight, and I was going to fucking snap because I was so tired of it. And I've kind of hit a breaking point this year with what I'm willing to deal with, and I do realize that sharing stuff online will inevitably bring in differing opinions, but with that said, my choice to be an influencer online does not mean that people can blatantly disrespect me. You are still rude if you don't respect boundaries or respect people just because they're a face on the internet. They're still people. It's still rude. The same social graces apply. I firmly stand by that. So people can watch me online, they can decide whether or not they agree with me, that's fine. But at the end of the day, I'm still a person who has every right to privacy and who does not need to discuss stuff in such detail online. I choose to because I think it's educational and I like using my platform to teach people, but I don't have to. And sometimes I need space. And sometimes I need people to take a step back and not get so involved in my life. And this was one of those times. So, now, all that aside, what we did do, because for me, after losing George suddenly in the way that we did, it was horrible. It gave me a lot of anxiety about my horses and their safety and like freak accidents happening and just like a lot of anxiety around the unknown. So what I chose to do, because since gelding is a permanent procedure and picking like anything for permanence, like this is again flashing back to why I won't answer if I'll keep a horse forever. It's something that causes me a lot of anxiety. So for my own well-being, I chose to pull straws from the cut balls. It's called like the epididymis, or I totally butchered that. But it's a sac that they can harvest semen from. So they were able to take and freeze straws for me that are now stored. To just chill or be used in the future potentially, but I have no intention of using them anytime in the near future whatsoever. It's just nice to have them there and have the peace of mind knowing that like if something were to happen to Banksy, there's always the option. and I didn't want to not do it and then regret it later. And people can say what they want about it. They can say that they don't need more horses and talk about the overbreeding problem. I've done a lot to promote rescue. I've rescued horses myself. I've adopted animals from rescue. I do more than the average person to promote rescue and deal with the unwanted horse problem. So even if this decision is viewed as selfish, I don't care. I've earned it. I do more than any of the people that have been judging me over this, and I deserve to do this for myself, for my own welfare and well-being. With that said, I don't think this is factored into the overbreeding problem because he did go premium, and the reason behind gelding him wasn't to do with anything about his ability to potentially pass stallion licensing. In fact, I had numerous breeders tell me that he's very nice. But, like, if we decided to breed him, his babies would be eligible for certain registries. For the ones he's not approved for, they wouldn't be. However, I have to check, because if he were to challenge the performance requirements, even as a gelding, I'm not sure if they'd consider that as being able to add to the stud book if he meets the performance requirements. But again, this is, like, honestly a decade into the future that we're talking, if that's even something to consider. So I don't know. But I did it because making a permanent decision is hard for me. It's a source of stress because there's been a lot of up and down in my life and a lot of change and a lot of freaking terrible things that have come out of the blue and happened and taken things away from me. And I deserved in this moment with my first homebred horse, who I love to death and who I worry about all the time because I have so much anxiety about these things, I deserved the peace of mind. So that's why we pulled straws, and that was why he was gelded. It all went according to the plan that I've been saying. I've been telling people this whole time that the plan was to keep him intact until sexual maturity, which he's basically at. Like, I would have liked to have keep him intact longer if I had my own place. But again, if I can't control the turnout options, it's just so much headache for me to try to juggle horses around different properties. And then the other thing is that I decided to keep Harlow, who was a sales Yeah, so deciding to keep Harlow means that I have a mare that I have to figure out boarding for, and it's just kind of a pain because then we're kind of like even just pasturing him beside her. She's one of the mares that is a pretty big skanky skank and really flirts with the geldings, let alone a stud colt. I can't imagine how terrible she would be with Banksy. But it just makes it more complicated, and that was not something I planned. So again, there's things that will come up that are unplanned that change what I may have initially done. Technically speaking, the barn that I board my horses at and rent, there's no stallions allowed on the property. Banksy was allowed to stay as long as he was because he was so well behaved. But they don't want stallions on the property at this boarding facility, which is fine. I understand it. He was very, very good, but again, like, it's not worth the long-term headache or potential stress for him or anyone else, and I don't want it to ever become an issue for him and his well-being if it means that suddenly he has to get moved to a different place, or I don't know. Okay, so I'll briefly talk about Milo too, because I've gotten a lot of questions about him and what he's doing and why he's not in work. I've been working so hard the last year, like so freaking hard, that I am so burnt out. I've barely had any time to ride any of my own horses, especially the last like 4 to 5 months. And I had to choose which horse I wanted to ride. So I chose Harlow because Milo is still rehabbing his feet, and it would be very good for him to go and do it on grass because it would enable us to pull his shoes and have his feet just be completely on grass, because he had Duplo shoes on, which are a frog support shoe, and it was just to kind of help him adjust to barefoot without it being as big of a shock because he had such problems with his ankles and his soles. So I figured turning him out on grass for a few months would mean that, one, Banksy would have an older horse that could keep him in line and be kind of a mature voice in the herd, and it kept the shenanigans to a little bit of a minimum. Two, the grass was great for his feet. It's really soft. There is a little bit of small gravel at the place that they're at, which means he did have to walk across rocks from time to time, which got to build his sole and all the structures of his feet in a really natural way, in a low maintenance way, from the standpoint of how it's going to feel for him as he adjusts to the new angles and bare feet. And it just gave him the means of getting a break from work and still just getting to continue growing healthy hoof, and it was the best decision ever. He grew so much sole, and his feet look so much better than they did before I put him there. They were already looking better, because we've been working on them for a while, obviously, but putting him on the grass, fast-tracked it. It was the best decision ever. And he'll be coming back into work soon, hopefully, but he needed a break. Honestly, he was like, he needed a break. His feet were sore and he was just kind of burnt out and fried after his whole ulcer ordeal last year and stuff. And I just wanted to completely do a reset and make sure that we covered all our bases and that he's going to be happy to come back into work, because it was just so on and off for him after the ulcer situation and then dealing with his feet. So it wasn't fair to him. It made no sense to have him be the horse that I chose to keep in work. It made the most sense to have Harlow because she's the most game and ready to do so. And he needed the time to build proper foot. And honestly, like, with the whole hoof rehab thing, I would have fixed his feet years ago if I hadn't been so selfish about wanting to ride him the whole time, and keep him in work and keeping shoes on to keep him sound, which, like, a lot of people do. I'm not judging anyone who's done this, but I did it out of, like, being naive and trusting, like, the advice I was given by farriers and just following kind of what the common opinion was for shoeing horses. And it resulted in his feet slowly getting ruined over time and then making it a big problem that's way harder to come back from. So I wish that I had done this way earlier, several years back, and just sucked it up and given him like 6 months off or even a whole year off in a field and just let him completely rehab his new feet and develop them barefoot and undo what happened to him with his shoeing styles and stuff. So that's kind of where I'm at with him, and that's why he's not being around. I still go check on them every day, and I very much still involved in taking care of them. I just haven't been posting about it. And I haven't really taken the initiative to tell people exactly what's going on because, again, I was just kind of like really over how much some people were inserting themselves in my life, and it made me uncomfortable. I hit like a breaking point because I realized now that there's like a decent group of people who for like almost a decade now have been like dedicated just to hoping for my failure and demise and just criticizing everything I do with horses and being mean. And the criticisms are hypocritical because they only choose me in specific to come at them for, and it's just kind of grasping at straws to cut me down as a person. And that level of obsession from people I've never even met in my life before, and just knowing that they're out there, like, just like seething and thinking hateful stuff about me or talking in group chats, it was really disconcerting to know that and know how long they have been doing it for. And it made me so uncomfortable. And that's why I wanted to take a step back from YouTube for a while and kind of just do my own thing. And now I'm starting to overcome the burnout, and I'm dealing with a lot of the mental health repercussions, dealing with all this shit that was going on, had on me, and that I wasn't necessarily aware of. I'm dealing with all of that, and I'm ready to share again. And again, I like doing this for educational purposes and to be transparent. And I just want to reiterate the fact that that's like a privilege for people online who like to watch my content. I'm under no obligation to explain everything that I do with my horses, but I explain most things and I share most things honestly when I don't have to. And it's just not anyone's place to get involved in some of these highly personal things. Like even sharing the fact that we pulled straws from Banksy's gelding service, I know it's going to make these hateful people have a heyday with it. They're going to have a huge problem with it, I guarantee you. Probably already talking about it somewhere and dedicating time to thinking about me, which again, super creepy. I hope they go to therapy because it has done wonders for me. But I know they'll have a problem with it, so I could have kept that to myself for years because it's something that no one would be able to find out about. It's my confidential right to not disclose vet records and stuff that's personal to me and my veterinarian and who else was involved. I don't have to share it. I chose to because I am an honest person, and quite frankly, I don't think people should think that they have the right to be this judgmental and nasty to someone just because they're online. Like, focus on yourself. I've been trying to grow as a trainer and a rider the last many years I've been online, and I feel like I've stayed mostly authentic and honest through the process, and I've tried to be upfront and just talking about what's going on with my horses, even if there's like soundness issues and not so fun stuff going on. And I feel like I've done my part doing that, and that I don't really owe anyone anything else. And basically, I suppose this is just to say, like, people that you watch online are humans too, and they have emotions, they have feelings, they have trauma and mental health issues and other stuff that's going on outside of the internet that you will never see or hear about. And it's so ignorant to assume that you know what's going on in their life well enough to judge it. And I also think that, like, the level of obsession that has to be behind people dedicating time to being negative and nasty for years, it's not okay, and there's a lot of people who would suffer greater mental health repercussions from it than I have, and the fact that there's people like that out there for virtually any influencer you'll meet is scary. And honestly, like, in the horse world especially, I'm surprised we've not had more problems with people completely tanking from how bullying and mean people can be in the horse community. It is a huge problem. It's an embarrassment. It's a dark stain on the horse world, and it's something that needs to change, because people have this notion that if something's online that they're entitled to weighing in on it, whether it's kind or not, and whether or not it's even something that's productive to weigh in on in the first place. And they view it as okay to go about things in a way that there's no way they would do in person. And it's completely unacceptable, because the effect that it has on the person that you're targeting is not going to be that much different than if it were in person. In some cases it's worse, because it can come at all times in all directions, and you can't enjoy using your social media for things like talking to friends if there's the potential to see something from someone who's trying to bully you online, basically. And that's what it is. It's bullying. My horses are well fed, they're well cared for, and I am doing my part to continue promoting rescue using my platforms, and I will rescue more horses in the future. I've done my part. I'm 100% happy with the care of my horses, and I have seen how much I've grown over the years, and I've seen how much my horse's health has improved as I've continued learning. And a lot of the mistakes that I have made with them were out of ignorance and just being naive and misled by people who I trusted and idolized. But I've been actively trying to learn from them and grow as a person, and I can say that for myself. I can't say that about anyone who dedicates their time to knocking other riders down. And honestly, like, there's bigger fish to fry. Please put your energy, for those of you who don't like me, that probably hate watch my stuff, I implore you to put your energy into doing something useful. Put your energy into promoting rescue, or adopting a horse yourself, or going to an auction and outbidding a meat buyer, or adopting an animal from the shelter. Put your money where your mouth is and actually dedicate it to animals who need your help, because whether you agree with everything I do or not, my horses are living a lot better than the vast majority of horses, because they have friends, freedom, and forage. And I'm very dedicated to continuing my equine sciences education to give them a better life, and I'm dedicated to trying to continue improving my business so I can afford the property that they deserve one day. And that's all I can say for myself. So the ball is in your court, people who have done this at any point in life, whether it's to me or someone else. I just want you to reconsider it, because I feel that most people are good people, and they wouldn't want to have someone be really mentally scarred from anything that they do. And that's what I want to put that out there, because it's been something that's been on my mind a lot, and I need to say it because it's just frustrating. And again, I'd like to share things online. I'm going to continue to post videos, and I'm going to continue to be pretty honest and candid with my I'm going to continue to be pretty honest with how I run my social media and the stuff that I share with people. But just remember that it's my choice to share, and it doesn't mean I'm welcoming you into every aspect of my life, that I still have things that are going on privately, and there's a lot of stuff that people don't know enough to weigh in on. So I'd rather have people ask questions than make assumptions. Anyways, I hope that clears things up, and there's going to be more Milo content in the future. I'm hoping to bring him back into work soon so that my boyfriend Jesse can ride him. And I'm also excited to have Jesse learn Liberty work with Banksy, which again, another perk to gelding him is if I bring him to shows, he can go to shows. There's a lot of schooling shows that have no stallion policies, and for the ones that allow stallions, it would just be kind of annoying, because for having other people handle him on the ground, it's just much more risky. Like, I wouldn't want to be handing him off to Jesse or anyone like that, and have potential for something bad to happen. So this is just way less stress. I'm so looking forward to there being no more questions about his balls or having them be irrelevant soon. I'm so looking forward to that. So I can't wait. This has been freeing for not only Banksy's nutsack, but also me and my mental health and well-being. So thanks.